David, were you at all? Did you find any of Dave Zirin's critiques of the movie
I thought it was
compelling?
good. I mean, I think Branch Rickey was a more complex figure than the movie suggests, and Harrison Ford should and deserves an Oscar nomination for his depiction of Branch Rickey. But Branch Rickey was was a more complex figure than the movie suggests, and there were some things that the Dodgers did that were not so angelic along the way. So I'm with Dave Zirin, but I also thought I thought it was a terrific movie. Since we're having a little difficulty patching in this guest, I'm going to give away a little bit of the story here, and that is this. Yeah, the story that I was trying to say is that so when Jackie Robinson went to Montreal, he led the Montreal. First of all, he was treated wonderfully by the Canadians, and Montreal had no African Americans, no black people whatsoever in the city. There just was no community there. And Jackie Robinson's neighbors took him and his wife, and when Jackie Robinson would play road games, they would invite his wife over for dinner. There was a constant sort of stream of support of people who were kind to the Robinsons, were very sort of social with them, would make sure to sort of look after them. And Jackie Robinson tells this amazing, there's this amazing story, and people who were in Montreal at the time, Montreal also had, its own sort of prejudices and anti-Semitism, certainly, but people were so sort of taken with the idea that Montreal would be part of this experiment that they treated Jackie Robinson incredibly well. And when Jackie Robinson, he was hitting like crazy, and the fans loved him. And in fact, there's this amazing story about how Jackie Robinson batted 349 and led the International League, the AAA league in hitting that year, and led the Montreal Royals to the equivalent. They called it the mini World Series, but sort of a championship over Louisville. And there's this great story about how, Jackie Robinson, after Montreal wins this sort of clinching game to give Montreal the championship, that this sort of white mob of fans storms the field and chases after Jackie Robinson to put him on their shoulders and carry him around Delormier Stadium for 15 minutes on their shoulders. And for a lot of people, I think Jackie Robinson said to a reporter at the time, this is probably the first time in human history that a white mob has chased a black man to put that man on their shoulders as opposed to lynching him. And you think back about the times, and this is 1946, at a time when the United States for another 25 years would have severe racial problems, and then still actually longer than that. Until civil rights legislation passed, and then of course there's still all sorts of problems with racism in our country that exist to this day. But the point of all this is, you think about all the sort of steps along the way that sort of help break the color barrier, and everybody from Montreal who was alive at that time, who was in Montreal in 1946, I know from my own dad just how proud Canadians are of so much about this sort of heritage, but in particular for a lot of folks, including my dad, who are sort of so proud of how the humanity has come along in terms of equality and grappling with racism, was so particularly proud that his home city of Montreal was decades ahead of other cities in terms of integration, in terms of equality, in terms of treating people simply based on their skills and not based on the color of their skin. And for years and years and years growing up, whenever my dad would talk about his pride at being from Montreal, Canada, the story about how Montreal treated Jackie Robinson was always, one of the first that he would tell. And he would tell the stories about Jackie Robinson and how well Canadians treated him, and how happy the citizens of Montreal, Canada were that Branch Rickey had assigned Jackie Robinson, that year before he went to the Dodgers, had assigned him to Montreal. And it's just a sort of incredible point of pride with Canadians, with Montrealers to this day, that the Jackie Robinson experiment probably would not have worked had it not been for Jackie Robinson having that experience in a nearly 99% white city, and being reminded that, despite all the racism he would eventually face when he was playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers and traveling to various games, that there were still some parts of North America where he would be beloved simply if he was a great baseball player, and that it didn't matter what the color of his skin was. So hats off to everybody who considers Montreal, Canada, their home, or who was alive at the time and was part of this. I know it was just a remarkably gripping experience for so many people. And then, of course, it was the next year, 1947, when Jackie Robinson took the diamond for the Brooklyn Dodgers, and he would go on to become a Rookie of the Year. And, oh, by the way, Jackie Robinson was beaned more times in the first, I believe it was, 6 weeks of the season than anybody had ever been beaned in Major League Baseball. I mean, pitchers just throwing at his head, trying to bean him, and the racial stuff that he was facing on a daily basis, and even some of the animosity from his own teammates initially with the Brooklyn Dodgers. And in fact, going back to the situation about Montreal, Montreal wasn't perfect. The one person who apparently was tough on Jackie Robinson initially was his manager, who, by the way, was from Mississippi. He was not a Canadian. So with that, our tribute finally to our friends and family who are from Canada for the role that they played in Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier. Listen to this. Hats off to all the Montrealers who listen and watch the Take Action News. Hats off to everybody who made the Jackie Robinson experience of integrating Major League Baseball, who made it happen, whether it was Branch Rickey, the Brooklyn Dodgers, or the citizens of Montreal, Canada, the year before. An amazing story. And also hats off to the people who made the movie 42. Folks, you got to see this one. Take action. Educate yourself about what America was like at the time and how difficult this was. It was not easy. The movie 42 will take you right back. And our program, Take Action News, continues after this.